The whole city is lighting up with emergency alerts because of all the reported accidents. And get this, the big news is that monsters have officially crashed the party in Sadaman. But don't worry, the pros and their master-level buddies are being deployed. Before the car gets totally wrecked, a radio call for the Zanaku team crackles through the static. Meanwhile, huge, terrifying, dino-sized birds are just trashing the already demolished streets. A young warrior stands off against massive claws and bodies that tower several meters high as the beasts let out a nasty, guttural growl, followed by a deafening, high-pitched screech that echoes for what feels like forever. As he braces himself for the brawl, the warrior complains that his eardrums are about to pop. Right then, a colossal explosion of violet lightning goes off. The sheer power of it sends the beasts into a total frenzy. They shriek as the warrior conjures a gigantic spear of energy in the sky, ready to skewer one of the creatures. But before he can even launch his epic attack, a distant rumble and a blinding white light steal the show. The resulting shockwave just rips the heads clean off the monsters. All that's left are their twitching, feathered bodies. The warrior is just standing there thinking, what in the world was that? As the monster corpses slam into the ground, the impact sends a tremor through the street as he and his subordinate look on. She's completely blown away, giving him all the credit. But the guy's quick to shut that down, saying it wasn't his handiwork. He explains that he's not the guy for wide-area attacks. That's more the Queen's Blade's style. They both glance around, totally sketched out, since they were supposed to be the only ones there. He asks his partner if any other awakened squads are operating in the area besides them, but she confirms they're flying solo. He gets a thoughtful look on his face, realizing he's never heard of a unit in the entire country with that kind of insane firepower. All of a sudden, the warrior spots a magic stone and wonders what kind of moron would leave such valuable loot just lying around. Still quiet, the captain can't stop replaying what he just witnessed in his head. He's especially hung up on the sheer power and precision of those attacks. Shaking himself out of it for a moment, he orders the young woman to activate the matrix and get the cleanup crew for the bodies. And that's when he notices something odd. Amidst all the rubble and destroyed buildings, there's a restaurant without a single scratch on it. Analyzing the scene, he thinks that if the big shot who wrecked this place had miscalculated by even an inch, that restaurant owner would have been out of business for good. He shifts his spear on his back, still thinking. He tells his buddy to come in for a drink, then bam, we flash to a whole new scene. A couple of little birds are just pecking away at a car's hood when some young dude strolls up. He spooks them off before dipping down a set of alley stairs. He pauses for a hot second, scoping out the street before coughing into his sleeve and ducking into what looks like an abandoned restaurant. Acting like he owns the joint, he fires up the stove and gets ready to cook. He raids the pantry and, what do you know, finds a massive slab of meat. He thunks it down on the counter next to some garlic cloves and a bit of rosemary. But then, he gives his prize a second look, a little bit skeptical. He wonders if he got a little too greedy with the Belto meat, figuring the cleanup crew probably snagged all the other monster drops by now. So maybe he should just make some jerky. With this prime cut he managed to score. Suddenly, his 5-star meal planning is cut short by a knock at the door, with some guy asking if Kang Cheel is around. Answering the door, he confirms he's Kang Cheel, only to find himself face-to-face with a rep from the Awakened Association. The official explains that a pack of Beltos just tore through the area and adds, "You must have been absolutely terrified." He continues, saying he's just making the rounds to check local residences and shops for any damage. A little sheepishly, the guy points out that since barely anyone lives in this dump, there weren't any major losses, thankfully. While he's rambling on, an insanely delicious smell wafts right into his nostrils. He takes a deep, appreciative sniff and says, "Wow, something in there smells incredible." With a perfectly straight face, our boy just deadpans, "Yeah, well, this is a diner." The rep then asks if he could possibly grab some breakfast, mentioning he's been on the streets since dawn and is starving. Kang doesn't even bother to say no. The moment the association guy steps inside, his jaw practically hits the floor. The place is stunning, totally spotless, and so perfectly organized it looks like a cozy diner from some old-school K-drama from back before the portals showed up. As he looks for a spot to sit, he asks for the menu. But our chef just explains that he cooks with whatever ingredients are on hand for the day. Intrigued, the man asks if there's something like a special of the day, and Kang just nods. Yep. Tying on his apron, he announces with zero irony, "Today's special is Belto steak." The guy's jaw just about hit the floor, completely bug-eyed. He stammers that he saw a whopping 10 of those giant bird things, and apparently, their carcasses just splatted right into the middle of the market. Kang just shrugs, saying that thanks to that little skypocalypse, he scored a ton of fresh meat, and despite the critters being a menace, they taste absolutely divine. The representative, looking totally weirded out, suddenly gets a greedy glint in his eye, all hyped to try it, but then his face falls as he starts sweating about whether he can even afford a meal this legendary. Meanwhile, Kang casually carves some thick slabs from his chosen cut, then gives it a simple, expert sprinkle of salt and pepper. Flashback time. 30 years ago, our guy remembers waking up in a whole other dimension. We're talking dragons in the sky and monsters crawling everywhere. He had to throw down just to stay alive, battling anything and anyone that looked at him funny. After a bit, he started leveling up like crazy, even taking down dragons like it was no big deal. Eventually, he faced off against the Demon King and, you guessed it, ended him with his trusty OP sword. And just like that, he became a legendary hero. After all that grinding, he finally punched his ticket back to Earth. Except, surprise, the portals had already invaded his homeworld too, and the life he knew was long gone. Back in the kitchen, as he's seasoning the meat, his mind drifts back to all the insider info he picked up like a walking bestiary, with all the cheat codes for these monsters. He tosses the steak into a sizzling pan, dousing it with a rich sauce, and wonders if he really needs to get back in the hero game. As he plates the dish with surgical precision, he figures the folks on Earth are holding down the fort, in their own little way. Drizzling the last of the sauce over the top, Kang silently accepts that this is just the new normal. The master chef then eyes his creation with a satisfied smirk. Behold. Belto steak, plated to perfection with a side of crisp asparagus and fresh salad. The customer's eyes are practically sparkling. He's just mesmerized by the sheer artistry on the plate, which is way, way more epic than he ever imagined. Gingerly, he lifts a piece of meat to his lips, and bam, a flavor explosion unlike anything he's ever experienced. The guy is raving about how juicy it is, his mind blown by the sheer irony of it all. The very monsters that caused him so much grief were now giving him the meal of a lifetime. Savoring every last morsel, he decides it's probably best not to overthink it. He just shuts up and demolishes the steak, one perfect bite after another, thinking he doesn't even care what this is going to cost him. The second he's done, he's already asking Kang if he can get another round, and our boy just coolly says, "You got it," even though the guy had personally hunted down the Beltos himself. A little while later, the representative, having absolutely demolished the second course, finally asks for the bill, but to his utter shock, Kang casually reveals that first-time customers get their meal on the house. Feeling a bit awkward, the man thanks him profusely, saying the food literally erased every ounce of fatigue from his day, which is exactly why he wants to pay and become a regular customer. Kang is secretly delighted by the man's desperate plea. He finally relents, saying it was only 10 silvers. As he's heading out the door, the association representative suddenly remembers something important. He gives Kang a friendly warning to take care and get the heck out of the area if monsters ever show up again. Sliding his business card over, he adds that even with new bars and clubs opening, the district is still a certified danger zone. Kang gives the card a quick scan as the man finally bids him farewell. The rep walks off, muttering to himself about how tough life is for the unawakened normies. Kang heads back to the kitchen, thinking the guy was all right, before immediately getting back to the main event, his own glorious dinner. He takes a huge bite of the steak, chews for a moment, and confirms that, yeah, it's insanely delicious. Outside, the night has fallen, complete with a dramatic owl hoot. Giving a good stretch, Kang thinks aloud that another day has come and gone, his eyes landing on the Beltos eggs he'd scored earlier. He starts wondering how to cook them up, when suddenly, bam, someone kicks the door clean open. It's some warrior, looking absolutely furious to have finally found Kang. Our boy just stares back, completely unbothered by the dramatic entrance. The warrior, however, is fuming. The intruder roars that he's here to reclaim what is rightfully his. Cue the flashback to just a few hours earlier, at the bustling cinnamon market. Kang was thinking about what a hassle it's become to find certain ingredients ever since monster meat became the new foodie craze. After a while, artificial farming started popping up, but it just couldn't replicate the real deal. The god-tier flavor of authentic monster meat kept the demand through the roof, and thanks to this, the local market just kept expanding, dealing in literally every monster part imaginable. It was at one of these very stalls that Kang laid his eyes on the Beltos eggs. But before making the purchase, he gave them a full scan with his overpowered detection eyes. This little cheat ability comes from a dragon artifact that lets him see through stuff, perfectly categorizing the eggs by quality. This just so happens to be one of the many toys he yoinked from the Demon King, and he still uses it all the time, since it lets him see the true essence of everything and instantly spot if someone is trying to lie to his face. After a quick scan, he decides to snag 3 eggs from the stall, but one of them is a total mystery, giving his artifact the silent treatment. So naturally, he tells the vendor to wrap that little enigma up too. Back at his restaurant, he cracks open an egg, thinking about how on the battlefield, mealtime was a myth. Getting to eat anything that wasn't trying to kill you first was basically a 5-star experience. But hey, those rough and tumble days are just a memory now. He whips up a god-tier sandwich and some scrambled eggs with one of the Belto eggs. It's wild how food and smells are basically a time machine for your brain. And whenever he eats something this good or chugs some Cole's milk, it's like his old squad is right there with him. Taking a huge bite, Kang gets hit with a flavor bomb, every texture, every note, just perfect. It's not just delicious, it's pure comfort food that brings back all the old memories. Staring out the window, all sentimental, he wonders if he's getting old for missing those knuckleheads. Mumbling to himself like a crazy person, he eyeballs the mystery egg, still bugged that his scanner couldn't get a read on it. As far as he knows, a dragon's artifact is basically their soul-bound item, forged the second they hatch. It packs all their power and can scan other beings, but it's totally blind to its own kind. So, checking out the weird color and scales, Kang has a light bulb moment. Did I just buy a freaking dragon egg? Just as he's debating fried versus scrambled, some angry kid storms in and ruins the vibe. At first, Kang is just like, can I help you, dude? But the kid just keeps screaming that he's here to get his item back. Then he spots the blue egg in Kang's hands and points dramatically. Kang just rolls his eyes and fires up his appraisal skill again. He gets nothing on the kid, so he just deadpans. So, you're a dragon, right? And right on cue, the little intruder bursts into a ball of fire. Kang's only thought is, called it. Knew this world had dragons. Meanwhile, the kid is leaking magic and rage everywhere. The little lizard boy screeches, "How did you know?" But Kang looks about as scared as a rock. Kang just calmly notes that his restaurant is on fire, while the kid keeps demanding an answer. Totally unfazed, our chef explains he's not looking for a brawl and casually mentions his little detector gizmo. For some reason, this just makes the dragon boy even more triggered. Kang's chill level is over 9,000. Without even a hint of a fight, he tells the dragon he can have the egg back, but trolls him by suggesting he wipe it down first, which sends the kid into a full-on meltdown. The dragon kid's eyes bug out when he spots a kitchen knife, realizing it's made from blue dragon scales, basically, a distant relative. He takes a big whiff of the countertop and, in sheer horror, asks if it's crafted from dragon bones. The revelation that his entire ancestry has been turned into a kitchenware set sends the dragon boy into an absolute fury. Unleashing every last drop of power and draconic energy from his body, the kid starts morphing into some kind of monstrous, terrifying beast. But Kang, he looks about as impressed as if he were watching paint dry. The dragon boy fires a massive energy blast at the cook, who casually flexes his own magic in response. Kang just summons a cooking pot, holding the thing up right in the kid's face like a makeshift shield. He treats the energy blast like a tennis ball, smacking it with a perfect backhand right back at the dragon. The poor guy is completely stunned by that ridiculous Uno reverse card, and he's even more shocked when, before he can even blink, Kang is charging at him like a heat-seeking missile. With all his might, Kang introduces the pot to the boy's face with a resounding times bonk asterisk. Through the ringing in his ears, the dragon realizes that the chef's voice sounds way too familiar. A flashback hits him like a freight train, recalling those same threatening words aimed at the Demon King while holding a sword. Kang had demanded the artifact, threatening to wreck the king and just take it if he refused. He was facing down a colossal red dragon without a single shred of fear. The monster wanted to turn him into confetti, even as a small child begged it to stop. And then, it all clicked. He remembers that this chef was the very guy who caused his traumatic childhood that day. They'd had a quick run-in, and Kang had been genuinely surprised to see a little dragon kid there. Now, standing before him was that very same dragon, the son of the beast he'd faced all those years ago. The boy slowly starts to regain consciousness after being knocked out cold by a piece of cookware. Kang tells him that once he's done cleaning up the mess, he can grab his things and get lost. In a super passive-aggressive way, he mentions he's not really a fan of dragons, and if the kid doesn't cooperate, well, then they'd have to get a little more physical again. Left with zero good options, the boy grabs the bucket and rags. While mopping the floor, he explains to Kang that he's from the continent of the Span and got zapped into this world through a dimensional rift. Muttering to himself, Kang pieces it together. The Span continent is linked to this world, which is why all the monsters seemed so familiar. Kang then casually confesses to the Dragon Boy that in his old world, people called him Muralas, but he decided to go with a new name for his fresh start here. At that very moment, he lays into the kid for slacking on the scrubbing. The boy just bites his tongue, knowing his hunch was spot on. A little later, seeing his reflection in the squeaky clean floor, Kang finally gives the kid the boot, letting him leave with the blue egg in tow. But the young man squares up to Kang, demanding to know why he never gave back his father's artifact. Kang's eyes widen. He realizes this is the same kid who watched him throw down with the son of that monster dragon, Ekman Rex. He motions for the Dragon Boy to come a little closer, but the kid flinches, still sore from the smackdown he got earlier. So, Kang switches gears, asking how old he is. The dragon puffs out his chest and says he's 50, even though he looks like a teenager. The cook just scoffs, saying he's already 60, which makes the dragon wonder if he's some kind of elf. With a massive grin, Kang fires the question right back at him, asking if the dragon really thinks he's that good-looking. Then, changing the topic on a dime, he mentions how, back in his day, putting misbehaving dragons in their place was just another Tuesday. The kid, of course, completely loses it again. Kang just finds the whole meltdown hilarious. Doriji sputters, asking if Kang is planning to delete him, but the cook just waves it off, claiming all those legendary items were just party favors. Kang gives a half-hearted apology about the artifact, explaining it kinda shattered when he was brawling with the Demon King. Then, out of nowhere, he invites the fuming dragon to pull up a chair and have a drink with him. The Dragon Boy is floored by the sheer nerve of this guy, thinking, how dare a mere mortal ask a dragon to grab a beer? But, fast forward a little bit, and he's totally passed out on the table, completely wasted. Slurring his words, he mumbles that Kang has to be the only human to ever get a dragon hammered. Out of curiosity, the cook asks if he ever hatched that egg he was so obsessed with, but the young dragon flips out, yelling that it's his brother. He explains that a portal suddenly ripped open in their city a while back when his parents weren't around. Kang puts the pieces together, realizing that's how the kid ended up as a portal drifter. The cook admits their backstories are kinda similar, saying he felt the same lost feeling when he first landed on Earth, but he ultimately decided to stick around because he still had some loose ends to tie up. Even so, the Dragon Boy isn't buying it. It just seems impossible for a warrior that strong to not have some hidden agenda. In his world, humans are the real monsters, always greedy, always fighting each other for a little more power. He flat out asks if Kang secretly wants to take over the world. The cook just smirks and says the kid's not wrong about humans, but he couldn't care less about any of that. In fact, all that world domination stuff just sounds incredibly boring. But the dragon's not buying it, flat out saying he doesn't trust a single word from a human. Kang just tells him to chill out and look after himself and his little sibling, clutching the blue egg. He's practically beaming, absolutely thrilled to have his precious item back. Then, they both hear a Times crack asterisk. Kang's face splits into the dumbest grin ever as he lays eyes on a baby dragon with huge, sparkly peepers. The Dragon Boy is also just staring at the unbelievably adorable little thing. He instantly recognizes his new sibling. The shell just gave way, and poof, a baby dragon was born right on the table. Our chef asks what he's supposed to call the little critter, and the Dragon Boy's like, I'm working on a name. For now, just call her Hatchling. And then, finally, he asks if it's a boy or a girl, and Hugh gets all huffy, confirming she's a female dragon and is not to be treated like some common beast. Kang just goes ahead and starts petting the creature's fluffy little face. He can't help but notice its teeny tiny little chompers. Meanwhile, Hugh goes full-on doting big brother mode, gushing over and over about how the baby is the most adorable thing in existence. And honestly, our boy Kang can't even argue with that. Finally, he asks, so, where are you going to take this little monster? The two of them just stare at each other in awkward silence. Then Kang breaks into a sly grin like he just had a brilliant idea. Outside, the sun is shining. He suggests the young dragon and her new sister grab a bite to eat before taking off. Elsewhere, it was a morning filled with howling, desolate winds as demons rode the storm. The gales carried the foul stench of, well, let's just say, battle juice. Through the air, as strands of white hair whipped around, a weak, strained voice called out the name. Marrow. The voice struggled to proclaim, I'm alive. Anyway, back at the restaurant, young Kang had whipped up 2 mouth-watering burgers made from Belto and Triceratops meat. He offers a bite to the big bro and feeds the baby, but Hugh's gotta know. So, how much is this gonna set me back? Kang's like, normally, it's $10, but don't worry about it, it's on the house. Hugh mulls it over for a second, then asks, hey, you got a place to crash here too? Kang tells him no, but starts thinking that the dragon kid must be feeling pretty lost in this strange new world. That's when the young dragon offers him some magic stones as a thank you. Seeing this, Kang can't help but think how a dragon showing gratitude would probably give a bunch of academics a collective aneurysm. Hugh offers him 2 Class 4 magic stones, but then, all of a sudden, our chef just bursts out laughing like a total maniac. He notices the baby dragon making a little peep and asks, "What's wrong, little one? Still hungry?" As he gives the tiny creature another bite. He figures living on Earth with a walking disaster like that must be a real pain in the neck. Daydreaming about Mira, the weakened dude starts whining about how much he misses his own world. And our boy is over here having a mini existential crisis, convinced he'll never see that little dragon again in this lifetime. After all that drama, he finally caves and tells the dragon kid he can crash for a few days. But Q, being the responsible freeloader he is, insists he can't just mooch off Kang without paying his way. Kang just brushes him off with a, "Don't sweat it, I got this," and starts whipping up a spell with his bare hands. Naturally, the magic goes a little haywire, and, poof, Kasim, the immortal goblin, just materializes out of thin air. He casually greets them. This eternally living goblin is basically the glorified manager for Kang's subspace inventory. Our protagonist immediately gets down to business, asking how many magic stones they've got stashed in the pocket dimension. The goblin's like, "Yeah, we're still pretty loaded," and just flicks one over to the kid. He starts trying to explain something, with the goblin just staring at him like he's the most fascinating thing in the universe. Hugh, meanwhile, is just standing there, his mind completely blown by the whole spectacle. Then the little guy says his goodbyes to the two of them, while Kangi just watches the whole thing go down. Now, it's time for Kang to ask Q for a little favor. Cut to the next day, and it's a beautiful morning. The little dragon dude is sleeping like a baby, completely oblivious to the massive inferno raging right behind him. Our MC is trying to teach Q that just randomly blasting his fire breath all over the place isn't a strategy. It's just a great way to torch everything. He tells him he needs to get that fire under control, and they're gonna try again. And for this special training session, they've got a giant slab of meat already roasting on a spit. The kid asks if the weapon he was using was just some random piece of junk, which our protagonist immediately shuts down. He explains that it was the legendary Recoel axe, prompting the guy to ask why he's using a priceless artifact as a glorified barbecue tool. With a massive troll face grin, Kuhl says, "You know, that's a fair point." Suddenly, someone calls out to them, bowing respectfully. The guy explains he's just taking a quick break from his patrol. Then, we get a lovely shot of a mountain of dirty dishes. While stuffing his face, the man is in absolute foodie heaven and asks Kang if he's hired some new help. This comment, of course, totally gets under Q's skin. And then, the guy drops some major news. A brand new dungeon has just popped up in the underground passage between Sinch and Sedimon. Yep, it looks like another one of those lovely monster factories is brewing. For the noobs watching, dungeons are basically monster incubators that also act as interdimensional gates for all sorts of nasty creatures. This particular one is rated a difficulty level of 5, so for the Sedimon side, they're sending in Mr. Kim Sang-gu and the entire Zenkaku squad. And holding down the fort in Sinchen will be Miss. Looks like Chaeyon is going to be team lead. But just in case they fumble the bag, a backup team is also in the works, which explains why the town square is absolutely swarming with job-hungry wannabes. The guy on the soapbox drones on about how most of them probably have families, feeling all smug about his own stable gig. And with that, his time's up, and he bounces. Apparently, the Avage roast grell is a real crowd pleaser. Maybe he should snag some more atahome. And just like that, he's hitting the market for his meat run. His ears suddenly perk up at the sound of a commotion nearby. The dude giving the speech rings a bell. The spear wizard, Kim Sang-gu, supposedly a measly level 2 awakened. So that's where the big recruitment drive is happening. Go figure. Nowadays, dungeon raid groups are called attack parties, because when the world basically becomes a video game, you gotta admit, all the old school terms just got a free transfer. While tanks and healers get treated like actual royalty, the DPS role is always ridiculously oversaturated. You can see them all, desperately clawing for that one spot. Most of them are just trying to feed their families. Our protagonist is just taking it all in, scanning the crowd with a sharp eye. Pujo Wu is a good dude, for real. Kay just wishes the guy would learn to take care of himself for once. Some random guy on the street digs into his pocket, flips open his wallet, and finds nothing but air. The dude looks completely lost, like his whole world just crashed. A hand snatches the handle of a bag as Khan keeps his eyes peeled, scanning his surroundings. The young man seems lost in thought, his eyes drifting to the side where he spots a man asking if a nearby place is still open for business. Our guy opens up the shop and gets a quick thanks. The man asks, "You serving Raymond?" To which he gets a nod. Ah, Raymond. Still the #1 budget meal substitute, a classic that hasn't changed in 30 years. The man then asks how much it costs, which comes out to $2. So the guy orders a whopping 5 bowls, swearing he can totally demolish all of it. This sets off Khan's alarms, so he activates his analysis skill to get the deets on this customer. A food god. The kid remembers having one on his team ages ago. The whole gimmick is, the more they eat, the more powerful they become, and the ingredients you use are a huge factor in that. You can score some seriously broken buffs, especially if you're feasting on high-quality monster chow. The only problem is, the class is kind of a joke until you can actually afford to eat strong monsters to grind EXP. Plus, you're cursed with a hunger that never, ever ends. It supposedly gets better after you hit a certain proficiency level, but by the looks of it, this dude is nowhere near that point. And just like that, the man's food is ready to go. And the dude is absolutely blown away by the quality. If that guy's alignment wasn't lawful good, K probably would have ignored him, even if he was the god of food himself. Since his skill rating is sky high, the Idaho meat is guaranteed to have a pretty sweet effect. As he's scarfing it down, the man offers his deepest thanks. He is completely floored by the incredible taste. He blurts out that he had no clue meat could be so ridiculously flavorful and aromatic. He then proceeds to inhale the rest with gusto, flipping the empty bowl upside down in one smooth motion. For him, that was a straight-up life-changing experience. He turns back to the cook and thanks him again, practically bowing. So, he gets ready to cough up the cash for the meal. But, while digging for change, he notices a necktie in the mix and apologizes for trying to pay the young man with such grubby money. A bit flustered, he says he'll have to come back and pay some other time. As he takes off, Khan takes a good look at his clothes, which are caked in dust. He remembers thinking that the poor guy must be going through some seriously tough times. Lo and behold, he saw that man again a long time later. Dragging himself through the streets, the fella looks completely exhausted. Then he spots a massive gate, just floating ominously in the sky. In the middle of the city, a gigantic portal is open, and the guards are shouting for everyone to back the heck up. A man, introducing himself as Desperto, steps up and asks if he can help out in any way. However, he's just your average, run-of-the-mill awakened one, and the security guard basically tells him he'd be completely useless in this dungeon. The white-haired man continues, saying it's probably for the best if he just finds a safe spot to hide. As he's walking away, he's stunned to find his own daughter, Mi Jin, in the crowd. He asks what on earth she's doing in such a dangerous place, and she just says she came to help the injured. The girl then turns the tables, asking what her father is doing there, and he claims he's just worried about the situation. Mi Jin gets super annoyed and says all he ever does is work and eat. She snaps that she's there to make money and tells him to get lost, giving him a shove. The man then drops his necktie on the ground, and his daughter scoffs that he doesn't even own a real weapon. Just then, the warriors start to pour out of the portal, and as they walk down the street, a red-haired warrior announces that the dungeon attack is officially over, calling for all healers to get to work on the injured. After her big announcement, the people all around start cheering, thanking her for her hard work. Then, we get a quick info dump on the types of abilities an awakened can have. There are 5 stages to reach the master level, and there's a special training ground for awakened folks called Cipher Schools. After you've totally mastered your first awakened class through training, you get the option to pick up a second class. If you actually manage to master 2 classes, the Awakened Association officially designates you as rank 1 or higher. So, if you're unlucky enough to awaken with a garbage tier ability or level up at a snail's pace, it's only natural to just find some peace doing a job that actually fits your skill set. All alone, Nero reflects that he's hit the 6th class and figures that's probably his limit. Then, all of a sudden, Chulaho calls him, freaking out that something super serious has happened with his pet dragon, Kuel. Apparently, it said something while munching on candy. Nero trolls him about the creature's name, but Chulaho says that's not important. He then shows him the dragon is literally saying "Daddy," leaving Miro completely stunned. He asks the red-haired guy if that name isn't a bit too Korean, and he just says, the dragon named itself. Shiloho is ecstatic that the little creature is calling him daddy, and they start debating what class the pup should even have. Suddenly, some guy bursts in yelling for Miro, asking if he can get 5 bowls of ramen immediately. Kilho then starts wondering how in the world he ended up becoming a restaurant manager, all while the man spills his guts to Miro. Full of regret, the man tells our protagonist he found his daughter inside a portal but was too weak to help her. The guards just ordered him to get out of there, since he was just a pathetic level 7 awakened. On the other hand, she was totally fine because she developed an amazing healing ability and was recognized as a 3rd class. The man keeps going with his sob story, saying he was invited to his daughter's school for an observation day, and the place was crazy expensive. That's why the man decided to buy something nice to wear for the day, but he could barely scrape together enough cash for a decent tie. So, he bailed on the school observation day, figuring there was no point in a broke dad showing up to embarrass his daughter. With his face in his hand, he lets out a bitter laugh, unable to believe he's still hungry even at a time like this. Manhwa calls himself useless, but still, a man's gotta eat if he wants a chance to be sent to a place where buildings get blown up by portals. Kilho calls out for Kei, who was in the kitchen. To the young man's complete surprise, the chef asks if it would be a problem if he fattened the boy up a bit, and starts throwing a fit. But before his tantrum can really get going, the restaurant owner just deadpans that he was only kidding. But Kei's attention span is already gone, zeroed in on Kule's hide sitting on the table. He demands to know why the chef is eyeballing the loot he collected. As the owner glances at the skin, the red-haired kid screams that he was planning to keep it as a souvenir. A fresh, extra-large portion of Raymond, made with real skin, is served up. Chilho sets the sizzling pot before Miro, claiming he had a ton of leftovers. The god of food digs in like there's no tomorrow. While the deity is busy inhaling his meal, the restaurant owner gazes out the window, looking all mysterious and plot-relevant. Manhwa polishes off his food, gives a nod of thanks, and leaves some cash on the table. Before heading out, he thanks Chilho again for the free therapy session and makes for the door. Our protagonist watches him go, but right at the last second, the owner calls out, dropping some classic NPC wisdom about life being a grind, and how it'd be nice if one thing was a cakewalk. Still, he adds that good things are supposed to happen to those who put in the work. And for the grand finale, he tells Manhwa to go all out and survive tomorrow's daily quest, because this restaurant will be here waiting for his return. The owner cracks a small smile as Manhwa walks off. Kei instantly materializes next to him like a gremlin, asking why the guy hasn't leveled up or something. Chilho just shrugs, saying he gave the guy a temporary buff, and that's the best he could do. Still salty about his precious monster part getting cooked, the redhead whines, "Why are you even helping that F-rank loser?" The boss just goes silent for a moment. Then he drops the backstory bomb. "He reminds me of my old man." That little info dump totally stuns Kei. Meanwhile, back at home, Manhwa is sneaking into his apartment like a ninja. He finds his daughter fast asleep, but then she starts whimpering for her dad in a dream. Actually, it looks more like a nightmare. The poor kid has tears in her eyes and is apologizing for something. The guy gently places a hand on his daughter's forehead, whispering that everything's okay and that he's the one who's sorry. He apologizes for making her feel ashamed, for not living like normal people, and for their life being stuck on hard mode. Tucking her in, he promises that he'll always love her, no matter what. The sun comes up, and Manhwa is already sprinting through the city streets toward the recruitment site. At the entrance, some young guy with a beard stops him, asking for his awakened registration card. He then asks for the man's name, like he's some kind of low-level gatekeeper. The moment he hears the name Manhwa, the guy's like, "Oh, you're times that times, dude. The one who took a nap mid-crisis last time." Manho's face absolutely plummets when the kid points out this could be a teensy little problem. But hey, since the mess is cleaned up, the dude gets a pass to use the portal anyway. No harm, no foul, right? Then, Gandalf over here flicks his wrist, and bam. A magical portal just pops up in the sky like an unwanted ad. And that's a wrap on recruitment, folks. Time to get this disastrous show on the road. Meanwhile, our boy Huho is just vibing, taking a chill stroll through the packed streets. And then, out of nowhere, a bus screeches to a halt right in his face. Instead of freaking out, the man just stares at it like he's watching a nature documentary. Back at the portal, someone finally notices something's up. That big ol' magic hole is shrinking faster than my patience. All the so-called warriors are running around like headless chickens, and Sangu's over here asking for a status report. Read the room, dude. Some guy pipes up, explaining that only the cool kids, classes 5 through 7, got the golden ticket for this portal party. While all this chaos is going down, Majin is playing a frantic game of Where's Waldo with her dad. And just to spice things up, a system message pops up. The final boss has entered the chat. Great timing. Game. The poor girl looks up, still screaming for her dad, and then we see it. Manho's foot, just chilling in the grass like a garden gnome. Cut to a squad of guys doing a full-on tactical sweep of the forest. Playing soldier, are we? And wouldn't you know it, a giant monster spawns right behind one of them and goes full-on freight train mode. Weirdly enough, Manho's suddenly feeling like he just chugged 5 energy drinks. Some girl nearby is totally bugging out, asking what the heck is going on. Oh, look. It seems we've got a little security breach inside the dungeon. No biggie, right? The squad braces for impact, and then we get a lovely close-up of a giant, scaly green foot. Hope they brought their brown pants. Surprise! It's a freaking dinosaur, fresh from Jurassic Park, and our guy is looking at it like he just saw his own ghost. Apparently, these bad boys only show up when an times extra, times dimensional rift opens, because one just wasn't chaotic enough. Which, by the way, is supposed to be super rare. And when it does times happen, it usually means a lot of people are about to get unalived. The Tiger X monster starts charging, and the whole crew just hits the nope button and scatters. But our boy Manho spots something shiny. It's a mana crystal, just sitting there on one of the monster corpses like a little prize. His brain immediately goes to the loot drop. If he can snag that, he's thinking about all the cash he could make. We're talking a lifetime supply of instant noodles here. Meanwhile, some guy is screaming at him to get out of there, but priorities, right? But the call of the bling is too strong. Manho just tunes out the screaming and goes for the shiny rock. Meanwhile, the Tiger X is on a rampage, just absolutely bodying everyone in its path. It is not having a good day. This thing is an absolute unit, no chill whatsoever. And it finally clicks for Manho. Asterisk. This times is what Minjin meant when she called him pathetic. And now, for a lovely montage of pure, unadulterated chaos back in the city streets. 1 second, Mijin is a sobbing mess on the pavement. The next, she's striking a pose for the camera. Talk about emotional whiplash. We get a quick flashback. A little girl, smiling her heart out while flipping through a magazine. But the highlight reel also shows her bawling her eyes out in other scenes. In those memories, we even see a glimpse of her as a newborn. Back in the present, deep in the forest, Manho's eyes snap open. He's thinking, no way, I'm kicking the bucket like this and leaving Minjin all alone. With a new fire in his eyes, he starts taunting the massive dinosaur to draw its attention. A single swipe from that thing's paw could flatten anyone, but our boy just keeps on provoking the beast, basically screaming, "Come at me, bro," trying to bait it into charging him. He then summons all his might, cocks back a fist, and roars that he refuses to die here and now. His entire fist is just crackling with raw electricity. Another guy from the squad is just staring, totally blown away by this power-up. It seems Manho actually managed to block the boss's ultimate attack, and for the first time, he doesn't feel a single hunger pang. While he's lost in thought, the creature lunges at him for round 2. Using just his hands, he shoves the monster back with incredible force. The dude's on a whole new level. His entire body is straining to fend off the assault, and he's determined to keep holding the monster right where it is. The rest of the team can only watch, completely awestruck. A teammate radios in, asking if the area has been evacuated, and how in the world that guy is solo tanking the Tiger X. That dude is a straight-up legend. They should totally try to get his business card after this. Meanwhile, Manho is still in a deadlocked struggle, holding back the creature's furious assault. This right here is what you'd call his special skill as a DPS tank. It's a decent skill, probably reaching at least level 3. The problem is, nobody else knows he has this ace up his sleeve. The guy from before runs over to get a closer look at the absolute unit who just stonewalled a dinosaur. And now, the little creature is crying. The hidden dungeon boss, Tiger X, has been officially defeated by Mr. Kim Manho. While he only tanked the boss's final skill, he's officially qualified for Shikshin Grade 3 and has become the MVP of this dungeon conquest. With a smirk on his face, our protagonist asks the little animal if it's reading the newspaper or something. He jokes that the critter seems a bit heavier, and adds that he's not its dad. But he keeps playing with the little guy anyway. Suddenly, a news report grabs their attention. Apparently, a ton of merchants in Subamian are having a major meltdown over a series of robberies. Manas are disappearing in massive amounts, and the public is getting real antsy, demanding some kind of intervention. Then some disembodied voice starts warning all the NPCs to watch their backs. This creepy-looking creature just pops up next to Khan, basically shoving a cup of water in his face like some sketchy street vendor. But just as he's about to chug it, Q comes in clutch, screaming, "Dude, don't drink that sketchy liquid." Apparently, he read in some dusty old lore book that the well water is basically a germ party, a total debuff potion, and then our boy just casually points out that the kid's eyes, a public restroom, and that nasty well all have the same sketchy vibe. Bro, what? He's suddenly reminded of some dude who totally loved the food here, and even scored some rare ingredients from the cinch area. Next thing you know, someone's hollering, "Yo, boss." It's the same guy from before, but this time he's brought backup, the one and only Captain Gamangu. The captain's all like, "I've heard the legends about you, Khan," and flashes his Awakener Association badge. The mystery suit pipes up, saying that if it wasn't for this boring joint meeting, this afternoon would actually be pretty chill. He points at the guy next to him and goes, "Wait, are you Shiksha-nim? Bro, you totally carried that Chun raid boss battle a while back." The dude just gives this awkward little smile and a thanks. Our MC is geeking out, saying it's an honor to have a real-life legend in his humble eatery. He asks if they're serving up some ramen today, and the guy gives him a big ol' yep. The captain chimes in, "I'll have what he's having." So when the food finally arrives, the dude in the suit just inhales the entire bowl in one go. And then, for the second time, he gives this super dramatic thank you for the meal. The captain's basically trying to kick him out like, "Alright, show's over, buddy." He's even offering to pick up the guy's daughter from school, telling him to take a break from the daily grind for once. Meanwhile, our protagonist is just eavesdropping from a distance, trying to process this whole weird interaction. He figures out their dynamic isn't as hostile as it looks, which just leaves him totally scratching his head. Then, boom, dead silence. He's just staring at the guy at the table, who's having a moment with his bowl of ramen. The captain, on the other hand, looks like he needs a serious nap. Cut to a different scene where some dude is screaming, "Are you completely out of your freaking mind?" and demanding to know how they had the guts to even poke that thing. The monster is giving them the ultimate death glare. Wait, is that the legendary three-tailed fox? It then unleashes a scream that could probably shatter glass. Our boy is just standing there, looking completely clueless about the chaos unfolding. He spots another guy just casually reading a newspaper, who then looks up, notices the time, and is like, "Whoops, my bad, it's late." The owner just shrugs, saying, "It's cool, we're empty anyway. You want a bite to eat or what?" Our guy claims he's not hungry, but then starts complaining about how some thief on a crime spree is giving all the local shopkeepers a massive migraine. So the dude asks for some booze, and the kid's like, "Sorry, we only got soju and beer on tap." "Alright then." The guy orders a beer and asks for the best thing on the menu. Our boy suggests some sashimi. The customer's all for it, saying he'll pay top dollar for quality, especially since monsters started pouring out of dimensional rifts. A new, monstrous era had dawned upon the world. The kind of fish you could find anywhere 30 years ago are now practically mythical creatures. Instead, we're stuck hunting down monsters that taste kinda similar. Right now, they're checking out this German-looking fish. He'd say it tastes a lot like regular white fish. If you had to pin it down, it's pretty close to sea bass. Back in the day, he never really got the hype around sashimi. Seemed like a total rip-off, super expensive for what you got. But man, once he tried it, he was hooked. And just like that, the sashimi is served. It's been way too long since the guy had a taste of this good stuff. He practically inhales the fish, and his reaction says it all. It's amazing, super refreshing, and just ridiculously delicious. Chasing it with a shot of soju? Absolute perfection. The dude is now in a state of pure bliss. He finally feels like he's actually off the clock for once. But there's always some urgent crap to deal with. Soy only managed to snag 2 days off, and what did he spend them doing? Wiping out monsters. Just endless, non-stop fighting, day in and day out. The monsters just keep pouring through those dimensional rifts like there's no tomorrow. There's literally no time to catch a break. According to him, this is his personal weapon. A gift for any level 2 or higher, awakened who graduates from Cipher Academy. Apparently, it's a beast when it comes to absorbing mana. He remembers graduating with honors, feeling all high and mighty, thinking he was going to save the world with his awesome skills. But the second he stepped into the real world, all that pride, just, poof, gone. Turns out, he was just a nobody in this massive, messed up world, completely the opposite of what he'd imagined. He mentions getting assigned to Sedaman 10 years ago, and man, it's been a rough ride. Everyone has that moment when they realize they're not the main character. The man downs another shot of soju, then he looks over and asks, "Wait, Aren't you the guardian of Sedamon? The lives, hopes, and futures of so many people are riding on my shoulders. Sometimes it's just too damn much. Our hero asks if he's got any memories of it all. The man just says, yeah, you bet I do. He's like, you know about the nine-tailed fox, kid? And boom, we're in a flashback. He's wondering which genius decided to poke the beast. Seriously, why would a level 2 nobody try something so monumentally stupid? And you bet he's going to find out. See, creatures with big brains, like nine-tailed foxes, are what you'd call mystical beings. Basically legendary tier mobs, which is just fancy talk for do not touch. For some reason we still haven't figured out, mystical beings don't usually aggro on humans. There hasn't been a single recorded attack in the last 30 years. That's why they're a rare spawn, but apparently not rare enough that some idiot couldn't find and poke it. Back in the memory, he's screaming at some guy, "What in the actual hell did you do?" The other dude is looking all shady and sweating buckets while a teammate yells for the captain. The fox showed up, and it is absolutely livid. Bro, that's a nine-tailed fox. He roars for his team to hold formation, shouting, "I'll take point." The whole place erupts into a massive circle of fire, with blazing infernos surrounding the beast. The captain's eyes are wide, totally impressed by the light show, and his team is just staring with their jaws on the floor. But the leader snaps them out of it. Stop gawking at it. You want to start seeing sparkly unicorns or something? And right on cue, the creature's power level spikes even higher as they brace for the hit. One of the women on his team is already losing her mind. The fox is eyeing her and the rest of the squad like they're a snack platter. Suddenly, someone screams for the captain. Like a flash, he zips forward, closing the gap. He gets a solid grip, preps his sword for a signature move, and unleashes it with full force right at the fox. The fox's eyes go wide, completely caught off guard. In the very next moment, it just looks confused. The leader watches it intently, trying to process its bizarre reaction. Then, the fox lets out a world-shattering scream of pain. Still, it fought like a cornered demon all night long until he finally, somehow, managed to put it down. After it's all over, the only thing he hears is the sound of crying. And right beside the mother, he sees a cub. The evil that genius unleashed was just him on a hunt, stumbling across a nine-tailed fox cub. The animal's instincts must have found it defenseless. It had to have been a screw-up. This guy was a top-tier prodigy from the CPH Academy. Even the best of the best make mistakes, but this was a whole other category of oopsie. This is the kind of blunder they make. So, they had to eliminate the animal, or at least, that's his version of the story. He claimed there was no other choice, and the media had an absolute field day with it for about 2 straight years. Our boy thinks, yeah, solid choice. The old dude stumbles to his feet, claiming he's been running his mouth too much. He's totally blaming it on the soju, of course. He yells for the check and asks if the kid can pack up a plate of sashimi to go. Without missing a beat, our protagonist is like, "You got it." The stranger shoves his hands in his pockets, probably trying to process the absolute lore drop he just witnessed. Cue the flashback. He's tearing into some rookie for daring to touch that legendary grade creature. He's basically screaming that an apology is useless when a ton of people are about to get deleted because of it. The guy was just watching the whole dumpster fire unfold, wondering how everything went so wrong. And then his eyes lock onto the massive rift crackling right in front of him. That fox is a monster our main character definitely remembers from his isekai trip to the continent of Span. But unlike the usual mobs that swarmed the continent under the Demon King's command, these furballs were actually friendly with the humans. However, he still had to farm 2 of those nine-tailed foxes, and man, the regret debuff hit hard both times. Those are memories permanently saved to his mental hard drive. Back in the present, the old man opens the sashimi box. The trauma hits like invisible scars, like screams you can almost hear. He whips his head around, totally spooked, and sees 3 huge flames just hovering there. As the cutscene replays in his head, the man watches every detail. A tiny paw slowly comes into view. It's a kung, still just a low-level cub. And that's when the man remembers he never actually managed to finish the job back then. He wonders why its eyes look so damn desperate, and admits to himself that he's completely failed his Guardian class quest. He's grilling it. "How many mana crystals did you yoink? And you've already got 3 tails?" The little cub just snags a piece of sashimi and starts munching. The man, gently but firmly, holds the little kung. The little critter just stares at him with big, curious eyes. But the boss man tells it to listen up. He says he can't cover for it anymore because the association is about to bring down the ban hammer. So, the fox has to get out of the city and find a new server to grind on. He yeets the little thing, trying to get it to scram, but like a boomerang, it comes right back. The man yells again for it to leave. The fox doesn't budge, and the guy just sighs, totally defeated. He just pleads with it to at least get out of this immediate area. The creature dashes off into the night, but then something totally grabs its attention. Through a window, it spots another creature. It creeps closer to get a better look. The animal is ridiculously cute. The three-tailed fox looks like it's having a galaxy brain moment. So, her brilliant idea is to start a playdate with the mysterious creature. Our boy, the master observer, watches this whole circus and casually asks if the little furball is hungry. But it looks like the little dude already hit up the all-you-can-eat buffet somewhere else. Just then, the man himself, Kang Kiel-ho, materializes and asks what he's doing here, then points and asks if that's a gumiho. A cub, to be exact. Then, in this ridiculously sweet voice, he introduces himself to the animal. He casually mentions that a grade 1 mana crystal would probably be super useful for its growth. The little fox immediately tries to chomp on the shiny rock, and bam, a massive power-up glow surges through its body. Our MC then tells the old guy to beat it and watches his own pet start calling out for its new little buddy. Left all alone, the fox cub just stares out into the darkness, all dramatic-like. It's deep in thought, probably wondering if it'll ever see its new protector again. Sprawled out on the forest floor, our guy is busy thinking about how the city lights just don't hit the same anymore. Out here, a gumiho's glow would really pop. But still, he doesn't actually want the little critter to come back, he's just hoping it stays safe out there on its own. Alright, fast forward to dawn, and we're back at the association where the knight, the blade queen, and the mage are officially on guard duty. And yes, this was all the association's master plan, by the way. The big cheese of this whole operation is President Yujinsu, who immediately starts complaining to Chen that it's hot. She offers to grab him some ice, but the old man just waves it off, saying it's not a big deal. Then, completely changing the subject, he asks if the mandrakes have all up and disappeared. For you noobs, that's a plant-type monster that chills underground until you mess with it. When you do, it sprays a poison that requires a special order antidote. But even if you have a potion, the moment you try to yank it out, it lets out a shriek so loud it can one-shot low-level awakeners. The girl reports that a whopping 13 of them have gone completely MIA. The president sarcastically asks since when screaming root vegetables grew legs and decided to walk off. Xiang chimes in with her brilliant theory. They probably just melted. The president says he's calling in Gabby and tells the girl to give her the rundown, because apparently the legend has returned. She's on mission standby, so the president is making this her top priority investigation. Meanwhile, back with our little furball, it seems perfectly happy. And then, suddenly, it gets super emo next to its new human, who is, of course, completely passed out and sleeping. The creature gently touches his forehead, then pulls back with a weirdly satisfied little smirk. Then the little guy looks kinda confused and starts trying to square up with a chair, using its tiny paws. The little critter scrambles up there like a pro, trying to snag something. The second that fridge door cracks open, it spots some produce and just stares, wondering what in the world it's looking at, since the vegetable has a freaking human face. That thing's face is pure nightmare fuel. But without a second thought, the little guy shoves the entire cursed vegetable in its mouth, fails for some reason, and just starts bawling. Our hero and his buddy just watch this whole train wreck, completely clueless about what just went down. His friend is in total disbelief. Like, did it seriously just try to eat that entire thing? Khan mentions he's been grinding out research on how these dimensional rifts even spawn, even visiting all the spots where dungeons have popped up. However, he's found squat, aside from a bunch of low-level mobs you see all over the continent of Aspan. The protagonist is pretty impressed by the dedication, but then gets asked if he's a monster too, which naturally, he finds totally offensive. This means that at the bare minimum, we're looking at a chance for dragons or even bigger raid bosses to start pouring through these dimensional rifts. The guy just asks Khan to hit him up if his investigation turns up anything juicy. Khan points out that Keel has already hit the master tier in 6 different classes and straight up asks if he can just, take admin control of the dimensional rifts. But the kid's like, nope. Getting back to that other world is a whole other epic quest that took decades, even after offing the Demon King. Khan's cool with tabling that discussion, since Shul apparently has an urgent side quest at the mall. It's one of those stupidly hot days, exactly what you'd expect from summer. And of course, there's a massive magical barrier shimmering in the sky above the city. A young woman is getting frustrated because she can't find a single track on the ground, even though they swore this was the right way. She takes in all the magical energy in the air and starts weaving a spell of her own, looking a little on edge for a second. Then, out of nowhere, another hand shoots out and grabs her face hard. She immediately blurts out, "Are you the Ice Witch?" Lee Gabby, meanwhile, is looking around completely bewildered, with zero clue what's happening. The newcomer says the girl can call her Uni, and then asks if she's the guardian of Sinshin. The girl's like, "Yep, that's me," and adds that her code name comes from the Cipher School. Apparently, she's in her 10th year now. Meanwhile, Gabby just waltzed right through a barrier, without leaving so much as a ripple. According to what this girl learned back at the Cipher School, she's been stuck at level 1 for 30 years. Chia then finally introduces herself to Gabby. Gabby cuts to the chase and asks for the Sitrep, and Chian confirms that they've put the entire area on total lockdown. But there's not a single sign of a break-in or any hunting, and whoever put up that barrier was level 4. Gabby figures that if someone waltzed through a level 4 barrier without leaving a single trace, then that's a huge deal. They ought to hit up the mercs in Seoul for some intel. She asks which mercenary group is the biggest deal around here, and Chian says it's gotta be the temple's mercenary court in Sedamon. Looks like that's their first stop, but not before they grab a bite to eat. Meanwhile, across town, some guy sneezes and wonders who's talking smack about him. It's Kane, planting a little smooch on some critter. He's going on about how adorable the little thing is, staring at it like it's the 8th wonder of the world, and he just can't get over how cute it is. Our hero pipes up, saying he saw that whole embarrassing display from start to finish, and asks if Kane isn't ashamed of himself, dodging his little sister like that. Then, out of nowhere, he tells Khan to fill a pot with water, and whips out a watermelon, much to the confusion of his friend, who looks like he's never seen one before. Chul also shows him a whole chicken, which actually gets a reaction out of him. Apparently, you can find those on the Spanish continent too. Totally stunned by the next reveal, Ken demands to know where Chul scored that mandre. The protagonist just shrugs, saying he found it on a walk and just yanked it out of the ground. He explains their bodies are chilly because they're absolutely packed with energy. Plus, they've got a super crunchy texture and a sweet flavor. So, they're perfect for both cold salads and hot stews. To prep the chicken, our boy just starts stuffing everything inside it. Glutinous rice, garlic, the mandre, some green onions. Then, he plops the whole thing into the pot, says it'll be done in a jiffy. Just then, someone shows up. This person had no idea they'd stumbled upon a pop-up restaurant. The three of them walk in, commenting on how amazing it smells. The two guys just casually invite them to join. The protagonist declares that his fine establishment always has room for more customers. The two girls just watch this bizarre exchange, completely bewildered. One of them pipes up that she won't be having any chicken, thank you very much, she's a vegetarian. Right on cue, the food is ready. The whole gang digs in, raving about it even though it's missing a little salt. The woman in the blue gear takes a bite of the chicken, and her eyes go wide. It's unbelievably juicy and flavorful. The protagonist casually asks if Lee Gabby is the vegetarian one, and if she'd be interested in some watermelon instead. Her eyes light up, and she eagerly says yes. Turns out, there are plenty of ways to enjoy that fruit. And as for our protagonist, but nah, he's got a master plan brewing. First, he dices up the meat into perfect little cubes, then tosses in some fruit for a bit of razzle-dazzle. And let me tell ya, this dude's got some serious knife skills. Next, he splashes in some kind of liquid, and boom. The masterpiece is complete, looking seriously refreshing. The lady is practically drooling and casually drops that she's the Ice Witch, protector of Kron. Not that she's a huge fan of the title, mind you. She explains that back in her school days at Cipher, during some royal rumble, some chump decided to poke the bear, so she flash froze the entire arena and made it snow indoors. And bam, the nickname stuck. Meanwhile, Hill's just wondering what these big shots are doing here, getting a vibe that something major is about to go down. The sheer power rolling off these folks is at least Guardian class, maybe even higher. And our boy Hill can't help but notice Gabby is a total smoke show. She gives him a thanks for the amazing grub, and just like that, the plates hit the sink. As they're heading out, his buddy leans over and is like, "Dude, that girl was ridiculously good looking. Like, way too gorgeous to be just a regular human." He's betting she's an elf. And Hill knows he's right, 'cause he snuck a peek with his detection skill and spotted she has ghostly sprint, a classic elf-only ability. The weird part though, she's completely dead to the flow of magic, which means it's not just a bunch of ugly monsters crawling through that dimensional rift anymore. Other species might already be chilling on Earth, all adapted and sneaky. Or maybe someone's playing 4D chess in the shadows. So what does our protagonist do? He gets on the horn with January and tells her he's about to cook up something totally one of a kind. Cut to them making some watermelon soju, just living their best lives. Meanwhile, our trio of big shots is taking a post-meal stroll through the city. The guy calls her ma'am and wonders if they should be looking at Mandre's disappearance as some kind of new, natural phenomenon. He points out there are 0 clues, no witnesses, no victims, and absolutely nothing out of place. The other woman chimes in, saying if even a level 1 awakened with a shadow cat couldn't sniff anything out, then the answer has got to be somewhere totally left field. You know, like if some weirdo just went and ate all the missing vegetables. Obviously. And that's exactly why Lee Gabby's spidey senses are tingling. Even without any hard evidence, just a gut feeling, she knows something fishy is going on. The only thing she can do now is report back to the higher-ups. Their next stop is the temple, but they're still waiting on the intel they need to move forward. Meanwhile, the big-shot temple captain, Zim Ta Jang, is finally hanging up his boots. Just then, some shadowy figure makes a blink, and you'll miss it appearance. Elsewhere, some guy is just chilling, staring up at the starry night sky. The sky looks almost exactly like the one back home, but he can't help but notice how the scenery around him is constantly shifting. This land, which used to smell like a field of flowers, now just reeks of dread and monsters. Even though he's totally wiped, he keeps the conversation going with a bunch of survivors, and just to mess with them, he drops the line. The box is closed, which makes everyone scream their heads off. Kang chimes in, saying it's pretty wild that the temple's special ops team actually stopped a monster invasion. Then, out of nowhere, his little pet dragon latches onto his leg, signaling she's finally awake. Being the curious little thing she is, she demands to see the fashion section in the daily paper. Spotting some sleeveless outfits, our hero deadpans that it's because, the weather's getting warmer. Her tiny stomach lets out a massive roar, and she informs the guy that she is absolutely starving. Our boy starts brainstorming breakfast ideas, because it's gotta be something amazing. I mean, come on, life's too short, and you only get 3 shots a day to eat something incredible. Glancing at the little critter, Kang remembers that, oh yeah, only times her times life is short, and then casually asks what the little one thinks about some white rice, since everyone knows whole grains are super healthy. He sets Fluffy on the floor and tells her to go wake up her brother. The dragon zips into the room and, without a second thought, dive bombs the kid who's totally passed out. From the other room, our protagonist just hears the young redhead let out a blood-curdling scream. A few minutes later, they're all gathered around the table, digging into some bimbosh with egg and veggies. The creature's brother thinks the whole thing is kinda weird, but our guy just tells him to mix it all together. So, the trio gets ready for that first bite, and just as you'd expect, they all agree the stuff is divine. After the meal, our hero asks Kang if the little one is all right, since she's been knocking out right after she eats. Kang explains that since she was only born 3 months ago, they'll start getting a clue about her class soon. Since all this eating and sleeping is part of the process, you can tell Kang is practically bouncing with excitement to find out what the little creature's class will be. Just then, someone walks into the restaurant, announcing that the rice smells ridiculously good. Our MC, ever the gracious host, whips up a dish and asks the kid if he wants a bite. The kid's like, heck yeah, but only after I demolish this ramen first. But our boy, smooth talker that he is, convinces him to chow down on both at once. A little while later, the guy from the Xenac team is casually flipping through today's paper, just as our master chef serves up the grub. Sixen's totally blown away, gushing about how amazing the food is, especially the kimchi. Meanwhile, our MC is just thinking, dude, of course it's good, I'm using top-tier mandre here. Just then, the association dude waltzes in and gives the pair a nod, claiming he's just popping in to say what's up since he's too busy to eat. He slides a drink over, as a peace offering. Kang's like, I get it, man, this heat wave is making everything a total mess. And even though the guy agrees, he mentions he's probably only holding it together because he's been eating at this joint. Apparently, the food's been a massive stamina booster. Then he turns to the other kid and asks if the big shot spearman has been on edge lately. The kid confirms it, saying the guy's been super down in the dumps, which clues our MC into the situation. Sixen drops the bomb. The legendary Shin Ti-Jang is hanging up his spear for good. And that's exactly why everyone is running around like a headless chicken. The real kicker? This guy was basically a living legend to them, someone they all looked up to. Naturally, our nosy protagonist asks what's the deal, and the kid starts spilling the tea about that incident from 10 years back. Turns out, that was the very first mission ever assigned to Kim Sang-gu, the guy who's the Lancer now, right before the 5 Guardians totally bit the dust during that invasion. We find out that Taejeon is officially ranked as a level 3 awakened, but his actual power level is way over 9,000. That's why the dude is considered such a ridiculously OP leader, especially back during the monster invasion war 10 years ago. Dude basically saved so many people they could start a fan club. Anyway, scene change. We jump over to the association's president, Yu Jinsu, who's muttering to himself that he knew this day was coming. Then, out of nowhere, there's a knock at the door, and he tells him to enter. And guess who it is? The Lancer himself, the one who's about to peace out, shows up and says, "Long time no see." The two waste no time and plop down at the table. The president, clearly not buying it, asks if the guy times really times has to go, and he just straight up says, "Yep." He's all like, "My time has come." The president just loses it, yelling about how he's being way too reckless, especially after creating the group 30 years ago and fighting in that godforsaken war. He was always there for him, you know? The Lancer just sets his cup down on the table and tells the president to listen up, because nobody pulls this stuff off solo. He reminds him that it took a whole lot of people busting their butts to build the world they have now. But from that moment on, it was time for some other poor saps to shoulder the burden while he finally clocked out. Not even waiting for a reply, Chun just bolts from the room, muttering something about being late. Left all alone, Mew figures Sang-gu must be totally crushed. Meanwhile, outside, the Lancer's already scheming, thinking his successor is a done deal, some guy named Kang Hik, a so-called promising awakened who's turning 30 this year, which apparently makes the timing just perfect. Then, out of nowhere, someone calls the dude crazy and asks if he's ever heard the word hope. Whipping around, Xian finds himself staring right into the face of the current Lancer. And scene change. We're zapped to our protagonist's restaurant, where the gang arrives in a hurry. Taking charge, Sang-gu asks for the menu. Our boy just says the special of the day is some classic homemade Korean food, all while thinking to himself that the old-timer looks about the same age as him. Stepping forward, Kang asks if it's a big deal if the food takes a little while to come out, but the retired Lancer waves it off, saying he can take all the time in the world. As he turns, the current Lancer announces that only his buddy is eating because he's super busy and has to dip. Once the young punk is gone, Tian apologizes, admitting the kid is still pretty immature. Our hero, totally lost, just asks what on earth he's talking about. Seeing as the kid is the new guardian, the old man lights a cigarette and wonders when Sang got so grown up. Then he suddenly remembers they're inside a closed-off room. Our MC says it's totally fine to smoke since no one else is there. Glancing at the pot, the ex-Lancer says the food smells incredible and that it's been forever since he smelled rice cooking. The whole aroma just hits him with a wave of nostalgia. Our protagonist just keeps quiet. He's busy thinking that every person has a deep-seated craving for something, which means a soybean paste stew is definitely the right move. After all, everyone has their own secret recipe, and his cooking method is all about locking in that slightly rough, rustic flavor. He does it by letting the soybean paste and veggies simmer on low heat for a good long time. The result is a dish that tastes like it came straight from the countryside. He then fries up an egg and grills a salted fish, serving up a full-blown traditional Korean feast. The moment the man sees the spread, he looks absolutely enchanted. That enchantment goes through the roof when he takes the first spoonful, making his eyes light up with a smile. Taejong says it feels just like being home, all while looking right at the protagonist. He's like, "Yo, it's been 30 years since I rolled into Seoul, so my memory's a little foggy, you know? Just goes to show how fast time zips by, right?" Then, with this total sad puppy face, the dude says that when he bounced from his hometown, he totally thought it'd be a quick round trip. And get this, he says he'll never forget the great evacuation from 30 years back, and definitely not the final invasion that went down 10 years ago. Meanwhile, Kang's just standing there, completely still, soaking in this whole sob story. The axe wielder continues his tale, saying that 30 years ago, when the monsters first decided to crash the party, a ton of countries and cities worldwide just straight up collapsed, and like, a bazillion people got yeeted from existence. That's when this guy, still chilling in his hometown, picked up a sword and suddenly got a massive stat boost to his physical abilities. So naturally, he took charge and led the newly awakened and the rest of his city's survivors to Seoul, kicking off what they called the Temple Mercenary Course. This whole gig rebuilt the city because everyone pulled together, which earned them the Guardian title, even though the place is officially still called Korea. But let's be real. All that's actually left is the city of Seoul. Because right when everyone was getting comfy, the monsters we now call bosses decided to invade. And boom. That kicked off the last great invasion. Flashback time. We're thrown back to that fateful day, watching him scrap with some gnarly creature. As he's fighting, he's thinking, crap, this thing is way too strong. I can't solo this boss. If something doesn't change, like, right now I'm totally gonna get wiped. He closes his eyes, basically accepting his fate, muttering that he doesn't want to go. But then, out of nowhere, Xian teleports in and starts wailing on the creature, and his hands are all stained with, wait, is that strawberry juice? He yells at the kid to snap out of it, pointing out that he's shaking in his boots too. He's scared and wants to bail, sure, but taking that step forward when you're terrified? That's what makes you a true hero. Holding out his hand, the guy asks our young hero for his name. He takes the hand and introduces himself as the newly minted Guardian. Powering up again, the spear dude tells the kid to watch closely. On his next moves, Tehone gets into position, spins his sword like a Beyblade, and charges the massive beast. He lands a devastating strike, finishing the job with style. Then he turns around and drops a cool one-liner. This is the path we carved out for ourselves. The rookie is just standing there, completely shook. Anyway, back to the present. We see Sangu scoping out the city from a mountaintop, spear in hand and on the move. He's muttering to himself that there shouldn't be any monsters in this area. He then dramatically declares this must be the spot where the former spear wielder will finally kick back and relax. Therefore, he's got to turn this quiet zone into a true 5-star retirement home. Then he just collapses, sobbing his eyes out. The kid starts whining about the complete lack of monsters, complaining that he can't even do a proper send-off quest for Taejeon. Back at the restaurant, Kenya straight up asks the old dude if he has any regrets. The guy admits his entire life has been one big regret, since he had to be absolutely perfect just to keep everyone, including himself, breathing. So basically, he had zero room for error, because one tiny screw-up meant someone was getting a one-way ticket to the afterlife. Our boy thinks to himself, man, I always thought the current Guardian was just a big kid for his age. But now it's all clicking into place. He gets that he learned it all from this absolute legend who ran himself ragged to raise an S-tier next generation. Speaking up, he says to the spear wielder, heard you're heading back to the old stomping grounds. Shin's like, yup. And our MC realizes he's starting to get what the old-timer went through. The man asks for the check, but our protag is like, nah, it's on the house. Says his joint has a special hometown hero discount, which is always free. The spear wielder, looking a little thrown, just says, well, that's a new one. He thanks him for the meal and then asks the kid to look after the new spear wielder. Kang just smirks, saying, don't worry, he's already a top-tier guardian. The old man cracks a smile, agreeing, and says he pretty much sees the kid as his own son. As he walks off, he shoves his hands in his pockets, just staring up at the moon. Standing at the doorway, our chef mutters that old soldiers don't die. They just fade away. A little while later, Chun finally makes it to where he was going. Not too far off, we spot Sangu, still looking like he's about to start the waterworks again, telling the old man to take it easy and live a long life. Then the kid just poofs out of existence. And suddenly, some creature pops up, saying that the human who just left and that mysterious being both gave it the shiny rock, an item that never once tried to mess with it, which can only mean a new, friendly face has moved into the neighborhood. Flipping back to Kang, he's wondering about Lantern, who's just screaming his name over and over. He's like, dude, you up? And then, out of nowhere, the whole scene gets trippy, and our hero gets yoinked to another dimension where some demon king is asking, so, you're the punk who summoned me here? Our boy, completely baffled, is just like, what the heck are you even talking about? He follows up with a gauntlet-powered haymaker, but the king just pops a magical barrier to block the incoming beatdown. Just as our hero lands the final, epic blow, he jolts awake, gasping for air and drenched in a cold sweat. He glances over and spots Kang, who's shaking like a leaf in a hurricane, looking absolutely petrified. The kid sputters that our MC was radiating some seriously psycho-killer vibes, and our hero realizes what he's done. He quickly apologizes, explaining that even though it's been a solid 10 years since the war ended, he still gets hit with these gnarly nightmares from time to time. He starts wondering if it's because he heard that Qian is about to get wrecked by a massive monster invasion. After all, it's the exact same day he had his big showdown with the Demon King. He's pretty sure that's not a coincidence, but our boy declares that in any case, they won't be having a rematch. Shaking it off, he checks the other room and finds Fluffy. And what's she doing? Just casually redecorating the floor with chalk. You know, typical toddler stuff. He walks over and points at one of the masterpieces, asking, "Is that supposed to be a chicken?" The little girl just looks up at him and babbles. Crouching down, he randomly thinks, "Wait, could she be a mermaid?" He then scoops the little dragon girl right into his arms. And just like that, he decides she's way too adorable to get in trouble, so he gives Fluffy a few head pats instead. He bribes her, saying he'll cook some chicken if she cleans up her art. As he's leaving the bathroom, the red-headed kid walks in and looks absolutely traumatized by the chalk-pocalypse on the floor. Kang tells our MC he needs to teach his sister how to clean, right before seeing her getting all cuddly with him. A little jealous, Kang asks why she's so much chummier with him, but our hero just smoothly dodges the question and says he's heading to the market. He then tells the young man that he's officially on babysitting duty. Cut to the market, where our guy is buying a ridiculous amount of chicken, and the vendor is definitely curious. Our protagonist just plays it cool, saying he's got a housemate with a black hole for a stomach. The vendor is ecstatic, calling it his lucky day, and then casually mentions the big festival happening later. Cho's totally clueless, so the guy just tells him to check out the town square to see what all the fuss is about. So, naturally, he wanders over to the location, and is greeted by the sight of a giant freaking robot surrounded by a hyped-up crowd. He's watching from the sidelines when he realizes, wait a sec, that's a golem. Out of nowhere, some lady pops up next to him, explaining she's here to see the test run of their brand new ogre. Now he's intrigued, so our boy asks her what in the world she means by ogre. The lady reveals the creature's name is a radiable golem, a mech basically powered by a mana crystal. In his head, Kang thinks the monster's got some serious firepower, but its weak points are a mile wide. Its slow, clunky movements are perfect for taking on giant monsters, but totally worthless against anything small and fast. This tells him not just any random person can pilot it, so he decides to press for more details. And the woman confirms that the person pulling the strings is a level 1, awakened individual. With the gears in his head turning again, our protagonist realizes why just anyone can't drive the golem. It requires active mana channeling. You have to funnel the energy from the mana stone, and only special people like Kim Hoon can even do that. Kang's final verdict is that the robot's skills are passable, but it costs a fortune to build, making it a terrible investment. He gives the woman a quick goodbye, and she immediately asks if his restaurant is going to be open. He confirms it'll only close if something crazy happens, and hearing this, the woman breathes a massive sigh of relief. Our boy zips home to find a literal mermaid, just chilling in his living room with Fluffy. Just one look at Kang's dumbfounded expression says it all. His brother asks if this is his handiwork, but the young man is practically vibrating with excitement, announcing his sister has unlocked the Spirit Master class. He then explains that while Clay's hair is white, her mother was a blue dragon, which makes the protagonist ask if the mermaid is Andina, the water spirit. Nestled in the mermaid's lap, the tiny dragon starts calling the spirit Mommy. Grinning from ear to ear, Kang remarks that this spirit is a high-quality summon, and right beside him, his brother just nods in agreement. Internally, the protagonist thinks it's been a hot minute since he's seen a spirit in non-combat mode. And here comes the lore dump. Summoning spirits is simple, as they're just yanked out of a multi-dimensional realm. Their names are all standardized, no matter if they're high-tier, mid-tier, or low-grade. So, you have Andina for water, and Salamandra for fire, Silo for wind, and the gnome for earth. What's more, there's never been a single case of the spiritual kings being summoned, which means it's a final, world-ending resort. So that makes the demon realm, the spiritual realm, the continent of Spain, and the dimension where Earth exists, for a total of 4 dimensions, with 2 of them apparently connected. After trying to process all that, the protagonist's brain just blue screens, and he decides he can't think anymore. Whipping around, he side-eyes Kang, demanding to know if he's secretly been running a dragon-made training academy. Turns out, the real MVP of cleanup duty is Dina. Absolutely thrilled, our hero declares it's time for a celebratory feast. And so, to the kitchen they go, where he announces the main course is chicken, dropping the lore that a fried chicken craze swept the nation 30 years ago. And he preaches that while there are over 100 ways to cook this glorious bird, only one reigns supreme: the almighty fried chicken. He then presents a golden brown drumstick to their tiny dragon guest of honor, instructing her that the proper technique is to grab and chomp. Fluffy, a prodigy in the making, gets the memo instantly. This adorable sight even cracks a smile on Kang's face, gazing into the little dragon's sparkling eyes. Our guy coos. Isn't that the best thing ever? Meanwhile, Kang is practically drooling, wailing that he can't hold back any longer and makes a lunge for a piece, only to be stopped by the protagonist's hold-up, who then launches into a lecture about a sacred earth custom. Apparently, sharing fried chicken is a deep, psychological test to reveal a person's innermost character. Therefore, Kang must declare which piece he'll claim first. Absolutely famished, Hula's brother questions if this is really a big deal. Oh, but he gets a dead serious nod in return. The poor guy starts sweating bullets before confessing his favorite part is the chicken neck. And with that, our hero bursts out laughing. Just kidding, dude. Let's eat. The two bros turn around, only to find Fluffy has already demolished her share and is passed out in a food coma. Slapping some beers on the table, the protagonist proclaims that this golden brew is a far superior partner for chicken than soju. With a clink of their glasses, the two toast to the day's glorious discoveries. Kang finally takes a bite and is immediately transported to Flavortown. He watches Kang spit out a perfectly clean bone and asks how the heck he did that, since the meat is riddled with tiny ones. Just then, Fluffy wakes up demanding a second round, but is suddenly distracted by fireworks lighting up the sky. Our hero explains it's all for the festival, trying to get a word in while the red-headed warrior is freaking out, thinking they're under attack. The protagonist lifts the little dragon to the window for a better view, feeling a bit sad that she's cooped up inside. He turns back to Kang and casually asks when she'll be able to get her human form. The redhead explains that, since his sister has now awakened her powers, it shouldn't be too long. A huge grin spreads across our cook's face. He admits he can't wait, mostly because he wants to buy her a bunch of cute clothes, girl, and really rock her world. Not just with some necklace or a fancy haircut. Meanwhile, in a completely different part of town, the mech pilot grumbles that his ride needs a tune-up. The Mana Stone just isn't putting out enough juice. As he stomps into the men's locker room, he nearly walks right into the raven-haired woman waiting for him. She gives him an attaboy for a job well done, but Kim just grins, telling her she's starting to sound like his mother. He then declares that he's desperate to get out of his gear and grab some food. She tells him she's already found a spot, and, intrigued, he asks her where. She reveals the place is over in Sudamon. And after that, the conversation shifts to Taejeon finally hanging it up. With a hint of sadness, she admits it was probably his time to rest. Hoon chimes in, wishing he had a hometown he could go back to, too. Switching gears, she asks about the new mana crystal's performance. He confirms it's solid, but mentions the mana output isn't exactly clean, then asks if it was sourced from that newly popped dungeon. She confirms that it was. She explains it's a level 1, cave-type dungeon that just showed up in the ancient district. The real kicker was the sky, which started glowing with this creepy light, like it was about to drop something nasty on them. We found out that a whole lot of the epic loot swiped from dragons back in the day got totally wrecked during the war with the Demon King. But here's the weird part. None of the monsters even laid a finger on Kang. That let him snag a magic detector, and inside his head, he's thinking, yep, just as I suspected. There's a massive mana signature here too. This means we're not looking at a simple mana crystal mine, and if they play their cards right, this could be a game-changing discovery. But for the Demon King's presence to cause an entire dungeon to collapse, that means the mana levels here are completely off the charts. Spotting a fresh crack spreading across the ceiling, our boy just smirks and says, "Showtime." All of a sudden, a figure begins to materialize from within the ominous red glow. It's some kind of demonic boar leading the charge. Sangu immediately barks out the order for Formation D. He orders one team to prep for a full frontal assault, while the other sets up a perimeter to block them in. These are level 6 creatures, and what's worse, they've evolved into a pure combat type. Our guy instantly powers up, and right on cue, his squad lights up, ready to throw down. High above, the Guardian poises himself, ready to rain down pointy justice with his spear. But then, something completely unexpected catches his eye. He screams, "What is that lunatic doing?" And with a mighty thud, one of the boars gets absolutely wrecked and crashes to the ground. Scanning the chaotic battlefield, the spearman shouts a warning that the king has finally made its grand entrance. So now, he says, the top priority is to save the wounded. As if on cue, ominous red lightning starts crackling from the massive rift. Sangu finds himself in a real tight spot, completely swarmed by monsters. And yeah, it becomes painfully obvious the situation is foobar. Utterly desperate, The team captain admits he has to make a hard call, because if he wants to protect the rest of the squad and the civilians, he's got to order a retreat. But doing that would basically be a death sentence for everyone trapped near the king's spawn point. And choosing to save the majority just doesn't sit right, since the old guard heroes say they regret that kind of choice every single day. Standing perfectly still, the young man asks himself just how much regret those who came before him truly felt. His mind then flashes back to the day he was the one who got saved by Taizong, and he swears to himself that he'll become a true hero. Suddenly, someone screams that there are trapped team members up ahead. Snapping into action, Sanggu orders his team into Formation A so they can just brute force their way through. The second everyone sees their captain taking the lead, they get a second wind and start hauling ass to finish the mission. While carving a path with his enormous spear, the young man admits he's hit his mana limit, but there's no way in hell he can stop now. A kid shrieks that the king is making its move. We then see the colossal creature beelining it straight for the spearman. Thinking of his friends and comrades, he declares he's got to end this now and clear the path once and for all. Sanggu then launches his weapon. It scores a direct hit right in the boss's gaping maw, obliterating it so completely that not even a speck of dust remains. With his eyes glowing a shade of lilac, the spearman can't help but smile as he feels his power overflowing. A completely shell-shocked kid calls out to him, but he just waves it off, saying it's not the time for a chat when there are injured people to rescue. The only problem is, the kid was trying to warn him that a second king is now emerging from the portal. This new twist leaves the Guardian looking seriously worried. He screams for everyone to prep for a full-on defense on his signal. The new monster finally makes landfall with a ground-shaking impact. The spearman thinks to himself that they just need to hold out, because reinforcements should be showing up any minute now. But deep down, he has no idea how long he can keep this up. Then, out of nowhere, a massive flash of white light appears, leaving everyone completely stunned. Just like that, the creatures start getting wiped off the map, including the big boss that was about to pounce. The whole team is just standing there, jaws on the floor, trying to figure out how the monsters literally just vanished into thin air. Spotting Manhwa down for the count, Song immediately bolts over to him. Stumbling to his feet, the kid swears he's fine, but even he has no clue how he's not a pancake right now. The Guardian calls it, shouting they need to bail for now and for everyone to pull back. In his head, though, he's just thinking, what in the actual heck just went down? Meanwhile, way up on the mountaintop, Kay recalls what Xian asked him and pretty much concludes that, no matter what, nobody in this neck of the woods is going to figure out his secret identity. And hey, if there's a little collateral damage, that's just the price you pay for saving the day. The real kicker is that the spearman, who was chilling at level 2, actually hit level 1 right in the middle of that chaos, making him only the 4th awakened dude to ever pull that off. Suddenly, our hero's stomach lets out a massive roar, and he decides priorities are priorities. Food first. He zips back home and meets up with Kang, and immediately complains the campfire isn't blazing enough. In a flash, our boy is back with a whole armload of firewood. Totally baffled, the red-haired kid starts wondering just how overpowered Kang really is, but when our MC asks what he's thinking, he just plays it cool and says it's nothing. All while Fluffy stares at the flames like it's the best show on earth. Then he goes and summons Andina again, completely catching the poor guy by surprise. The mermaid pops up, and with one flick of her wrist, completely douses the campfire and soaks every single person there. After a few minutes, we see that tonight's main course is some glorious grilled pork belly. Absolutely stoked, Ken gives a huge thanks for the meal, but our MC stops him, saying, "Hold up, my dude. Let me introduce you to the magic of the meat wrap." The kid absolutely demolishes it and declares it's delicious. Kang then asks if Clay's brother is still poking around that dungeon. The boy confirms that, yeah, he is, and he's on it every chance he gets. That's when our boy spills the beans about what went down earlier. Kay says that the pigs are basically evolving to fit into the ecosystem, but they're still nothing compared to the beasts he ran into on the Spanish continent. Our protagonist points out that, actually, when that dimensional rift tore open, he didn't sense any energy from the Spanish continent, which means Earth is linked to a whole other dimension, and some seriously weird stuff is going on. So, with that little bombshell, that's where we're ending the video. If you don't want to miss the next part, go ahead and smash that notification bell to get your next quest update, and I'll catch you on the next grind here at me.